Chapter 4. As Anthony enters the Carter Middle School gym, the sound of the squeaking sneakers on the old parquet floor is enough to immediately knot his insides. He has no interest in basketball and no idea how to play. He's been trying to explain that to people for the last 2 years, ever since he grew 4 inches the summer after he turned 10. He's been approached by one stranger after another who likes to guess that he plays basketball or football, maybe both. That's the Lorraine way, after all, to assume a kid with Anthony's size would take to sports. So Anthony typically just nods and smiles at the old men with gray hair and calloused hands as they prophesy that he could be the next Bill Russell, or better yet, Refrigerator Perry. But Anthony doesn't want to be the next Bill Russell or Refrigerator Perry. Truth be told, he doesn't even know who they are. All he knows is that he's been stuck with the worst punishment in the history of Carter Middle School punishments. Anthony still remembers the day that he and his mom were seated across from Principal Kim in her office, how she drew her lips into a tight frown and told them that, well, she didn't believe in expulsion. Anthony would still have to face the consequences of his actions. Hoop group. She believed that would provide structure and discipline, even if Anthony didn't know the difference between a screen and a press. The only issue was that since the fight with Tyson had happened during the second week of May, basketball season, like most of the school year, was already over. As a result, Anthony's punishment was set to begin the following fall, which meant Anthony's entire summer had been one long countdown to the start of school and to the start of hoop group. Since there was no way of getting out of hoop group, Anthony quickly devised a plan for survival. He kept out of trouble and do just enough to stay in the program without actually becoming, well, a basketball player. Principal Kim's only requirement was that Anthony be present in the gym from 3 until 5 every day. She never said anything about him being any good. Anthony's eyes slip across the court, bouncing over the focused expressions of all the other kids, taking practice shots and likely planning their acceptance speeches for their first NBA MVP win. He rolls his eyes. Even though he knew he'd be out of place, Anthony realizes he completely underestimated the seriousness of middle school basketball. The kids are determined, deliberate, and in some cases really, really good. In other cases, not so much. As Anthony begins making his way over to Jaden, the only person he knows in the whole gym, he sidesteps a glasses-wearing kid who's half his size and trying to dribble through a maze of orange traffic cones. Not only is the kid wearing an obnoxious sticker on the name tag that says, "My name is Dexter," in bold red Sharpie, but he also seems just as bad at basketball as Anthony. After a couple of dribbles, the ball caroms wildly off Dexter's foot, forcing him to go chasing after it. Anthony watches Dexter run off before turning his attention back to Jaden, who's stretching in the far corner of the gym. Anthony is nearly close enough to speak when he stops short, suddenly distracted. Just a few feet in front of him is the most beautiful girl he's ever seen. Anthony feels his breath catch. The girl is tall with long, copper-colored legs that stretch out from beneath royal blue Nike shorts. Her hair is gathered into a mass of dark brown curls atop her head, and in 30 seconds, Anthony has been standing staring. She hasn't missed a single shot. "Who is that?" Anthony asks once he finally reaches Jaden. Jaden exhales as he pulls his right foot behind him to stretch the front of his thigh. "Who's who?" Anthony points to as the girl drains a three from at least 4 steps behind the arc. "Her." Anthony follows Jaden follows Anthony's fingers. He sees the girl he's also been watching since she first stepped foot inside the gym, and shrugs. "No clue. I heard somebody say her name was Tamaka, but I've never seen her before." Having a new kid at hoop group practice was noteworthy enough, but Tamika's practice was partially significant. When Coach Beck created the program some 28 years before, he was explicit about hoop group rules. Players were to operate in excellence on the court and off. Teammates were to be treated like family members, and finally, hoop group was for boys only. He never said it out loud, but Jaden always felt that the no girls rule was less archaic than it sounded. Boys' basketball teams had always been kept separate from girls' teams, and hoop group just happened to be for the Carter Middle School boys. It was just the way things were. Sure, the girls' program at the school had folded a decade ago, and even when it was still in operation, it never came close to achieving the recognition that Hoop Group did. But Jaden never thought it was a problem that girls couldn't play with Hoop Group. He didn't know any girls that wanted to. That is, until he saw Tamaya. Now, as Jaden watches her glide across the floor and sink 9 jump shots in a row, Coach Beck's rule does seem a bit ridiculous. Tamika definitely looks like she can hold her own against anyone. In fact, Jaden can think of at least 6 kids from last year's team who Tamika would absolutely demolish in a 1-on-1. It's just too bad, Jaden thinks for herself, because Coach Beck is never going to let her play. Aside from the mandates on performance, loyalty, and gender, there is one other Hoop Group rule, and it's this. Early is on time, and on time is late. It is a surprise, then, that when Coach Beck finally shows up for practice, the large clock on the gym's north wall reads 3:19. Still, no one seemed to be concerned about Coach Beck's uncharacteristic tardiness. As soon as he walks onto the court, everybody knows it's time for the annual Day 1 court run. The anxious energy in the room is palpable as the kids await the moment where Coach Beck will pick captains and send them off with their teams. Jaden can hardly stand still as he prays that his name will be called first. That's the first day of his 7th grade season will begin just as he dreamed it would all summer long. But when Coach opens his mouth to speak, Jaden is shocked by the words that come tumbling out. Coach Beck doesn't announce the first captain. Instead, he tells everyone to take a seat on the bleachers so he can share something important. The request is strange, coming at the beginning of what should be 2 full hours of back-to-back games, but the kids take their seats as instructed. After a few seconds of throat clearing and brow wiping, Coach is ready to begin. I know you guys are looking forward to today's run and to the rest of the season, but I have an announcement I need to make. He sighs heavily, shoves both hands deep into the pockets of his sweatpants. This has been a really rough summer for me personally, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to coach Hoop Group this year. There's a collective gasp that ripples across the bleachers. Then, as Coach Beck's words linger in the air, stunned silence turns into a low hum of whispers. One by one, each kid turns to another and another, trying to make sense of it all. I'm going to be okay. But Coach's words stop as his gaze locks with Jaden. Jaden can't help but notice that Coach's eyes look glassy and distant, just as if he'd just been crying. In response, Jaden feels his chest start to rise and fall. And his brain starts spinning like Grand's old washing machine. What more could there be? What else is there left to say? But without a coach, Coach Beck continues, Hoop Group can't continue. You'll still have access to the courts, but there will be no official team, and there will be no real season this year. That's it. The death knell and worst case scenario. 7th grade might as well be over. No one, absolutely no one, saw it coming. The next minutes unfold in slow motion. Coach asks the kids if there are any questions, and he is immediately met with a chorus of anguish and despair. There are so many voices calling out at once that Coach Beck must wave his arms in surrender and shout loud above the din, one person at a time. The first person he calls on is a kid who conveniently has a name tag stuck to the front of his tank top. Yes, Dexter, Coach Beck says. Jaden watches as the kid smiles awkwardly and pushes his glasses up on his nose. Actually, I go by Dex, and I was just wondering. You said there won't be a season this year. Does that mean we can't play in the fall invitational? Coach sighs. No season means no season. No season means no fall invitational. I'm sorry about that. I know a lot of you guys were looking forward to playing against the top programs of the state and hopefully getting on the radar of some of the big prep schools, but there's just nothing I can do. Dex asks a follow-up question. If there aren't, is there another coach or teacher who can come in to help out? Maybe a parent even. If we get another coach, can Hoop Group continue? But all the words seem to collide and scramble inside Jaden's brain. Nothing that Coach says matters more. Neither it seems to Jaden do his dreams. Jaden's frustration is morphing into anger, and as he looks around at the other kids whose moms probably have their own beds, he knows it's impossible that anyone could have loved Hoop Group more than him, could have longed for this season more than him, and could be, in this heartbreaking moment, more devastated than him. Jaden is tempted to walk out of the gym right then, to run away and never come back, but before he can, he's interrupted by movement at the far end of bleachers. He cranes his neck just in time to see Tamika jump up from her seat and grab a book bag. All eyes look in her direction, but she turns her back to the group as she hurries out of the gym. It's too late, though. Jaden already saw the tears that are streaming down her cheeks.